Your Majesties, ladies and gentlemen, during the Cold War, the connection between peace and human rights were disputed. Since the end of the Cold War, however, peace researchers and political scientists have almost without exception underlined how close those connections are. This is allegedly one of the most robust findings they have arrived at. Democracies may go to war against dictatorship and have certainly waged colonial wars, but there is apparently not a single example of a democracy having gone to war against another democracy. So the deeper fraternity between nations, which Alfred Nobel mentions in his will, and which is a prerequisite for real peace, can hardly be created without human rights and democracy. Your Majesties, there are scarcely any examples in world history of a great power achieving such rapid growth of such a long period of time as China. Since 1978, year by year, decade after decade, the country's growth rate has stood at 10% or more. A few years ago, the country's output was greater than Germany's. This year, it exceeded Japan's. China has thus achieved the world's second largest gross national product. The United States national product is still 3 times greater. But while China is continuing its advance, the United States is in serious difficulties. So economic success has lifted several hundred million Chinese out of poverty.
咁佢咧就指出啦，中國啦喺呢幾十年裏面咧喺經濟上咧有好巨大嘅進展啦。中國而家已經係世界第2大經濟體，數以億計嘅中國民眾咧因為咁樣而擺脱咗貧窮。
And therefore, we can to a certain degree say that China, with its 1.3 billion people, is carrying mankind's fate on its shoulders. If the country proves capable of developing a social market economy with full civil rights, this will have a huge favorable impact on the world. If not, there is a danger of social and economic crisis arising in the country with negative consequences for us all. And here we have arrived at the very logic of this year's prize. Historical experience gives us reason to believe that continuing rapid economic growth presupposes opportunities for free speech, free research, free thinking, and free debate. And moreover, without freedom of expression, corruption, the abuse of power, and misrule will develop. Every power system must be counterbalanced by popularly elected control, free media, and the right of individual citizens to criticize. More or less authoritarian states may have long periods of rapid economic growth, but it is no coincidence that nearly all the richest countries in the world are democratic, because democracy mobilizes new human and technological resources. China's new status entails increased responsibility. China must be prepared for criticism and regard it as positive, as an opportunity for improvement. This must be the case wherever there is great power. We have all formed opinions on the role of the United States through the years. Friends and allies criticized the country both for the Vietnam War and the lack of civil rights for the colored people. Many Americans were opposed to the award of the Nobel Peace Prize to Dr. Martin Luther King in 1964. Looking back, we can see that the United States grew stronger when the Afro-American people obtained their rights. China too will grow stronger if its people is being granted civil rights.
咁佢就以咧美國喺1964年啦，咁咧就係馬丁路德金咧得到和平獎咧作為例子嘅。咁指出當時咧美國都係咧經濟上咧有好大嘅發展。
Many will ask whether China's weakness, for all the strengths the country is currently showing, is not manifested in the need to imprison a man for 11 years merely for expressing his opinions on how his country should be governed. This weakness finds clear expression in the sentence on Liu, where it is underlined as especially serious that he spread his opinions on the internet. But those who fear technological advances have every reason to fear the future. Information technology cannot be abolished. It will continue to open societies. As the President of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Medvedev, put it in an address to the State Duma, and I quote, "The new information technology gives us an opportunity to be connected with the world. The world and society are growing more open, even if the ruling class does not like it."
全球咧資訊科技嘅發展咧，令到我哋更加容易知道世界時事。
Medvedev had the fate of the Soviet Union in mind. Compulsory uniformity and control of thought prevented the country from participating in the technological revolution which took place in the 1970s and 1980s.
1970年至1980年咧，就係資訊科技嘅發展嘅革命時代。
To gain a great deal more from entering into a dialogue at an early stage with people like Andrei Sakharov. Your Majesties, ladies and gentlemen, today's world order is a consequence of the two horrible wars in the 20th century. The world had to move from nationalism towards internationalism by establishing the United Nations and adopting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Today, therefore, neither the nation state nor a majority within a nation state has unlimited power. Human rights limit what the nation state and the majority in a nation state can do. This must apply to all states that are members of the United Nations and who have acceded to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
89年民運人士黃炳章嘅女王天安亦都有出席到今次嘅頒獎禮。
ILO's major international conventions and on human rights. It is interesting that China has accepted the supranational conflict resolving mechanism of the World Trade Organization. China's own constitution upholds fundamental human rights. Article 35 of the country's constitution thus lays down that citizens of the People's Republic of China enjoy freedom of speech, of the press,
佢指出啦，中國啦喺經濟上咁發展得好蓬勃啦，應該都享有同等嘅人權。
Article 41 begins by stating that citizens have the right to criticize and make suggestions regarding any state organ or functionary.
中國嘅民眾應該都有權利去對政治發表意見。
Exercised his civil rights. He has not done anything wrong. He must be released.
咁佢指出劉曉波係應該被釋放。跟住咧喺現場咧鼓掌嘅同時咧，喺香港渣打花園嘅一啲嘅市民都係一齊鼓掌。咁我見到亦都有部分嘅嘉賓咧，亦都係起立同埋繼續拍手㗎。咁跟住咧。 參加呢一個嘅頒獎典禮啦，除咗一啲嘅外國嘅一啲嘅嘉賓之外啦，亦都有當年嘅一啲八九民運嘅一啲嘅人士。咁頭先係見到啦，係有當年八九民運領袖柴玲啦，亦都係有異見人士黃炳昌嘅女黃天安，亦都有啦香港嘅一啲嘅代表，例如係何俊仁啦、劉慧卿等等嘅。
Ladies and gentlemen, in the past 100 to 150 years, human rights and democracy have gained an ever stronger position in the world.
過去150年，人權同民主咧係成為世界上最大，亦都係最重視嘅課題。
and whose colonial powers started so many wars around the world. Europe is today, on the whole, a continent of peace. Decolonization after the Second World War gave a number of countries, first in Asia and then in Africa, the chance to govern themselves with respect for basic human rights. With India in the lead, many of them seized the opportunity. Over the latest decades, we have seen how democracy has consolidated its position in Latin America and in Central Eastern Europe. Many countries in the Muslim part of the world are treading the same path. Turkey, Indonesia, Malaysia. Several other countries are in the process of opening up their political systems. The human rights activists in China are defenders of the international order and the main trends in the global community. Viewed in that light, they are not dissidents. They represent the world's common values and standards. Liu denies that criticism of the Communist Party is the same as offending China and the Chinese people. He argues that even if the Communist Party is the ruling party, it cannot be equated with a country, let alone with a nation and its culture. Changes in China can take time, a very long time. Political reforms should, as Liu says, be gradual, peaceful, orderly, and controlled. China has, in his words, had enough of attempts at revolutionary change that can only lead to chaos. But as Liu also writes, an enormous transformation towards pluralism in society has already taken place. An official authority is no longer able to fully control the whole society. However strong the power of the regime may appear to be, every single individual must do his best to live, in his words, an honest life with dignity. The answer from the Chinese authorities is to claim that this year's Peace Prize humiliates China and to give very derogatory descriptions of Liu. History shows many similar examples of political leaders playing on nationalist feelings and attempting to demonize holders of contrary opinions. They soon become foreign agents. This has sometimes happened in the name of democracy and freedom, but almost always with a tragic outcome. We recognize, for instance, this in the rhetoric of the struggle against terrorism. You are either for me or against me. Such undemocratic methods as torture and imprisonment without sentence have been used in the name of freedom. This has led to more polarization of the world and harmed the fight against terrorism. Liuxiaobo is an optimist.
佢指出咧，劉曉波咧曾經指出喺中國政制上咧應該係以和平、有控制同埋有條理咁樣去進行。咁佢指出啦，中國啦喺過去嘅歷史上面咧，見到佢喺政治上有好多嘅嘗試，但係咧到最後都演變成一啲嘅動亂。佢又指出啦，因為咧全球一啲嘅恐怖主義，而一啲 好注重反恐嘅國家啦，佢哋咧就係持一個對立嘅立場，一係咧就係支持，一係咧就係對立㗎。咁佢指出咧，因為咁嘅緣故，有啲國家會利用民主為藉口去對抗咗和平。